Welcome back to Kaylee Daily. Today's question is, how should I breathe when I am in labor?
This is Kaylee Daily, the bi-weekly podcast about all things doula tips and tits, where we answer one question about pregnancy, labor, postpartum, or lactation in order to have your journey in this parenting world be just a little bit more informed and filled with consent.
Hello and welcome back. I am Kaylee Harad, your host, doula, educator, etc. here on Kaylee Daily Podcast. I am back with another birth question today. So today's question is, how should I breathe during labor? Now, this came up recently in a comfort measures class that I was teaching, and I thought it was worth answering on a whole episode because there is, again, surprise, surprise, some nuance to my thoughts on this. So there is not only one way to breathe. Now, that being said, there are a few really helpful, very specific breathing techniques that I will talk about. But I want you to think about the comfort of having a rhythm in labor. And actually, I've been kind of exploring the idea of having a whole series on like questions around comfort measures. I'm not going down that road yet, but for the purpose of this episode, I want you to think about using movement, affirmations, breathing, support, in conjunction with like oxytocin raising things and things like that. Now, I have my whole episode on oxytocin. You can go back and listen to that one. I'll pop it into the show notes so that you have the link for it. But my general thought is, in labor, what everyone else who's not in labor should be doing is helping you, the person in labor, find your rhythm. Now, that looks a little different for everyone, right? So labor has the 3 stages, trying not to make this an entire childbirth class. But during the first stage of labor, when you're just getting to 10 centimeters, right? You're doing that. This is like the bulk of what we call labor. That stage is mostly contractions, right? And those contractions intensify, they get closer together, they get longer, etc., etc. And in that time, I think breathing in a particular pattern can be really helpful for a few reasons. One, it reminds you to breathe, right? Sometimes when intensity changes in our body, we forget to breathe. I am a person that holds my breath when I'm doing intense things. So I recently have had to start doing some physical therapy. Fun fact about me, I have arthritis in my hips, even though I'm not all that old. But I do some physical therapy for it so that I can continue to support my clients and, kind of live the life that I want to live with the least amount of pain possible. So my physical therapist gave me an exercise to do. And in the midst of doing it, she's standing right there. She said, "Are you breathing?" And I said, "No." And I just started laughing, right? I exhaled and laughed and said, "No, I'm not breathing." And she was like, "Okay, well, let's figure out how you can do this while you also breathe, because that's really important." And it was kind of a funny moment because this is what I do in my work, right? As a birth doula, I come to this work to help you optimize how you're doing your labor. And breathing is a big part of that. However, there's a lot of different methods of breathing. Now, generally speaking, I like breathing that will bring calm to your body. So anything like calm breathing is actually its own whole technique. You could Google and find info on that. Square breathing, any kind of breathing that's helpful in terms of like anxiety management does the same work to calm those hormones that are not helpful for birth and raise the relaxation and oxytocin hormones, etc. But any kind of rhythmic breathing that is also relaxing to your body is really helpful. Now, the other thing that I really like about breathing is that it often is something that gets you through a contraction in a really predictable way. So What I mean when I say that is, let's say you're having contractions that are 1 minute long, so 60 seconds, okay? Then if you're breathing in a way where you're breathing in for 3 and then breathing out for 6, right? So that sounds a little bit like this. If you're doing that, that usually gets you through a contraction in about 3 of those if you're going at that speed, or at least it gets you through the peak of a contraction at that speed. So that means I've had clients who are able to do that kind of breathing and fixate on the breathing, relaxing their body, closing their eyes, focusing on those 3 really rhythmic breaths that get them through the peak of the most intense part of that contraction. Okay. So I think it's helpful for both rhythm and relaxation. Now, depending on what part of labor you're in, I like different kinds of breathing. So sometimes I'll breathe like that, where I breathe in for 3 and out for 6. Sometimes I'll help a client breathe in for 3, hold it for 3, breathe out for 6. Sometimes think about breathing in, breathing out, breathing in, breathing out in a square. So you're breathing in, going up, breathing out, going to the right, breathing in, going down, breathing out, going to the left, and then again, right? Again, it kind of like gives you something else to focus on in the midst of an intense contraction. The other thing that I like in terms of breath work is helping to use your breath to relax your face and throat. So sometimes that looks like moaning, like really nice deep sounds. Sometimes that looks like blowing raspberries with your lips. If you're not familiar with that, you should Google that. Also, your baby will like that at some point. So, why not learn that now? But even just having something that is your own rhythm, it doesn't have to be something that someone else has decided is a helpful thing for labor, right? I think that's still incredibly beneficial. So, what I would say is to do some practicing in terms of breath work so you can kind of figure out what works for you. And then if you notice about yourself, like, I am actually a person that holds my breath when I do hard things, then you especially want to have a breathing rhythm in labor because maybe you don't naturally go to that. If you notice like you get tense and your jaw clenches up, right? Or like your tongue pushes to the roof of your mouth or your shoulders come up to your ears, those kinds of signs of upper body, neck, throat, jaw tension have a very big impact on cervical, vaginal canal, bottom of the uterus tension. It's super connected. So, doing things to practice breathing where you're relaxing your jaw. And some of the things that I like are things where you just even like move your jaw around, just like loosen your jaw up. So you're shaking it around. The raspberry, so that's like kind of stuff. Or nice deep sounds. So something along these lines. Like that kind of sound, or even just a breath that's like, so like really wide mouth, breathing out, right? So all of those can be helpful, especially as you're focusing on relaxing and opening your cervix, letting your birth canal expand, letting your body stay calm in the midst of that. All of those can be helpful in those scenarios, okay? Now, the one thing that I have found, the one specific, like really specific breathing exercise that I have found to be wildly helpful for a lot of my clients is called J breathing. Now, this is a specific kind of breathing for the pushing stage, the second stage of labor. If you don't know what I'm talking about, first stage, second stage, third stage, etc., I really do recommend that you find an amazing childbirth class. If you've been around for any length of time here, you know that this lovely podcast is actually sponsored by my childbirth class, which is called the Birth Prep Blueprint. It's comprehensive childbirth education that goes through all your options, all your education, all your advocacy and self centering and consent. But it's also a self-paced online class that you can take as you need it rather than trying to cram it all into a weekend. So that link is always in the show notes because as a podcast listener, you get a 10% discount on it. So you can grab that out of the notes if you're needing a class. But if my class is not a good fit for you, I encourage you to find something. You really, really, really need a childbirth class. I cannot emphasize that enough. Okay. So J breathing, I'm gonna put 2 links in the show notes of my favorite YouTube videos about this, because I think it's a helpful thing to practice in advance. Now, in pushing, sometimes people hold their breath, but actually a lot of people find that they have more power in their bodies when they breathe very specifically. So that is where J breathing comes in, because it's kind of a focused breathing that instead of breathing out, you're breathing down into your body. And that sounds kind of strange. So I will put the links in the show notes so that you can check out those the like more thorough tutorials on how to do that, what that should sound like and look like, etc. But before we finish up this episode, I want to add in one little extra tidbit for partners or doulas or birth support people, right? So oftentimes in some portion of birth, I see a variety of not breathing great, right? Sometimes it's just straight up holding your breath. Sometimes it's things like taking a deep breath and then making a high pitched sound. So someone going like, so in order to make that sound, you have to have tension in your face and your throat and your neck. That is how those high pitched sounds happen. So when I hear that, or when I hear someone just like not breathing at all, I will say one of 2 things. If it's a high pitched noise, I'll say something like, I want you to make a deep sound with me. Breathe in, and then we're going to moan. Because in labor, it's hard to correct what you're kind of innately doing. And it's really hard to objectively look at your strategies and be like, oh, you know what? I'm probably not breathing very effectively in the middle of that contraction, because you have all this intensity happening that you're kind of just focused on that. And so the external guidance from your team can be wildly helpful. Now, I specifically avoid saying you're doing it wrong or something like that, right? I don't say like, oh, you shouldn't breathe like that, or don't make high-pitched sounds. I find that unhelpful, right? So I say things like, I want you to breathe with me. Breathe in, and then we're going to make low noises. And then when that contraction comes, we both together breathe in and then go, and I am demonstrating what I mean when I say a low noise, so that the person in labor can just mimic me. They don't have to think about it. They don't have to try to remember what the heck that even is. Some people naturally do this in life, right? They naturally do these low tones for other reasons, for their yoga practices or other things in life. So it's not something they have to remember what I'm talking about. But other people are like, I'm sorry, what? Like, you want me to make a what sound? And in that situation, I want to just make it as easy as possible for someone to do that alongside me. Now, if someone's holding their breath, I say, I want you to take a deep breath in and breathe with me. Okay. Again, not saying you're doing it wrong, you're holding your breath, stop holding your breath, you shouldn't be doing that. But saying instead, I want you to breathe. And sometimes even if I see like they're kind of freaking out about it, then we'll get through that contraction. I'll say, hey, take a deep breath, let that one go, shake your back out, right? And then this next one, I want you to look at me and focus on breathing, right? And so I want you to like really specifically, and I don't add anything fancy. I just say, let's breathe together, because I don't want you to get overly overwhelmed in that moment of how to do it right or wrong or whatever. And so if I see that you're holding your breath, I'm not like, okay, we're going to breathe in a square. We're going to breathe in for 3 and out for 6. I just breathe and help you to breathe along with me, right? So that is today's episode. I will put some breathing exercises, some kinds of breathing that can be helpful in the show notes, so you can use those. Breathing stuff is a part of my class. I really, 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 really cannot emphasize enough how important it is to have childbirth education, especially childbirth education that comes from an unbiased lens about birth and doesn't try to push you kind of towards one agenda or another. So yeah, obviously I like mine, but you can find other great ones as well. This is, of course, never medical advice. This is always entertainment and education. I do recommend that you talk to your own medical team for medical advice about you. And until the next episode, I wish you well-informed, consent-filled birthing experiences.
Edited and produced by Kaylee Harrod, as I'm sure you can probably tell. And our amazing music is credited in the show notes as well. So we look forward to seeing you on the next episode. And in the meantime, have wonderful and consent-filled births.